After she asked me to do this, I was obviously thinking, you know, what should I say? And I thought, well, you know, maybe we should talk about vaccines and the fact that you should get a flu shot every year, and you should get a pneumovax at least once in your life, depending on other health problems, and you ought to have a tetanus shot every now and then, and there's even a couple of girly vaccines that we're kind of recommending for men now called Gardasil. And I thought, you know what? We get some guys in here, let's get some bang for our buck. So what we're really going to talk about today is the things that kill us. Okay? So what are the leading causes of death in men? Well, if you're under age 44, you are most likely to die of unintentional injury. Wow, that's going to strike pretty close to home for some guys. Heart disease is number 2. We all know that our hearts are what kill us. You hear that every day on TV. Well, up to age 44, your heart doesn't have a chance. It's the more fun stuff that you do that gets you. After that, it's cancer, and if you're older than 65, it's heart disease. The second most common way to die, if you're young, is suicide. And then after that, it's heart disease, cancer. Third most common way to die, if you're under 34 years old, is homicide. I don't know if you guys realize how blessed you are to live in this area, but you are blessed. The city of Chicago will record its 700th homicide before this weekend is out. Okay? We don't have to put up with that around here much at all. I mean, it's a rare event. But nationwide, if you're under 34 years of age, you're more likely to die from homicide of any other reason. That's kind of scary, isn't it? You have to understand that not that many people under 34 die. But percentage-wise, homicide is going to be the number 1 cause. After that, from ages 35 to 44, third most common way to die is suicide. And that's a tragedy. And that speaks to the mental health system that we have in this country, which frankly is broken. From age 45 to 64, the third most common way to die is unintentional injury again. Now you would think that somebody my age would have wised up a little bit and figured out that you really probably shouldn't be doing stupid stuff. But such is not the case. Sorry. If you're over 65 years of age, third most common way to die is emphysema. Now, I know this does not resemble anybody in this room. Well, maybe. This is it, guys. This is the killer. This is a killer trash. This is the whole point of this talk, okay? We can finish our sandwiches and go home. Overweight, Big Mac, pack of Marlboros, okay? And that's it. Leading causes of death for all ages, and this is what you're going to hear on TV. Number 1 is heart disease, okay, hands down. Kills men faster than anything else. However, it also kills women, okay? And after menopause, women actually catch up and pass the men in terms of heart disease. So when your wife starts talking about your weight, your blood pressure, and your cholesterol, and just look at her and say, "You just wait till menopause, honey." Number 2 is cancer. Okay, we'll talk about some guy cancers. Number 3, there it is, unintentional injury. And number 4 is COPD. So, I thought, well, we'd take these things pretty much in order. And we'll talk about heart disease, and then we'll talk about cancer, and we'll talk about unintentional injury. But you know what? Unintentional injury is one of those things that's, well, unintentional. And it kind of reaches up and grabs you while you're not looking. And so we're going to talk about unintentional injury just a little bit, a couple of things, and then interspersed through the rest of the talk, there are going to be some examples of unintentional injury. And I will tell you that it took me longer to find slides appropriate for this talk on unintentional injury than anything else by far, because if you Google accidental death, what comes up on your computer is ugly. We're talking about like people cut in two with their guts strung on the street, headless people and stuff like that. I do not think that was appropriate for this venue, so you will not see any of that. So how do we die? Workplace safety. Who has read a book called The Jungle, written by a guy named Upton Sinclair? Yes, you read it in junior high or high school. It was an expose about the terrible, squalid conditions that people worked in the Chicago meatpacking industry. This book and the investigations that came from it spawned an entire government agency called the FDA. Okay? Workplace safety is better than it has ever been, but people still die at work from accidents. Then you got hobbies and work around the house. These are honeydews, okay? You be careful with your honeydews, because some of them will kill you. And then there's stupid stuff, okay? Like, hey, hold my beer and watch this. That's what's killing guys, even up to age 65, that's kind of scary, isn't it? You'd think we'd gotten smarter. So, there's an unintentional injury. Or oh, Humpty Dumpty. He's done. This is a workplace injury. It's actually not a real workplace injury, or there'd be a puddle of blood under that guy. I bet you. But you see that guy that's leaning over him? I know you guys that work or have worked recently will appreciate this. This guy is leaning over that guy and kind of rolling him over. Okay, number one, don't do that, because if he's got something broken, you might make it worse. But number two, what you can't hear is what that guy is telling this injured guy. What he's saying is, hey, Fred, shake it off, get up. Hurry up, get back to work before the safety guy gets here. I guarantee you that conversation's occurring right now. Now, does anybody know what the Darwin Awards are? There's a committee of people who choose every year the most foolish way that someone died during the previous year. They're called the Darwin Awards. Their slogan is, the two most abundant things in the universe are hydrogen and stupidity. And unfortunately, they're talking about men. So let's talk about heart disease, okay? Heart disease includes three things. Myocardial infarction, that's when you come to the emergency room because your chest hurts, you're short of breath, you're having nausea, you're sweating, and you don't know why you're sweating because you hadn't been running. It also includes fatal arrhythmias, which are irregular heartbeats, which are what we call cafe coronaries. You may have heard that term. That's not a heart attack in the classic sense of having a clogged up artery. That is an irregular heartbeat that causes your heart to not pump blood anymore, and it happens like that. And you're done. Unless there's somebody standing by who knows how to do good CPR, and God is not through with you yet. Because even effective CPR yields a less than 10% survival rate, even if done immediately. It's an axiom of medicine that most people who die stay dead. Third kind of heart disease, congestive heart failure. Well, you wouldn't think that a young man would have congestive heart failure. Most congestive heart failure comes from previous myocardial infarction, clogged up arteries, stuff like that. But there are young men who have heart failure. There is a athlete's syndrome where these guys bulk up and they're these super athletes and then they quit. And their heart's balloon out. And this can happen at a young age. We can also get viral infections of our heart muscle that cause our heart to balloon, and we end up with congestive heart failure. And that can happen at any age. It can also happen to women. sad little map. This is the rate of heart disease by county for the entire United States of America. Ochiltree County is right there. Okay? And it's dark red over here. Wow. That makes my feelers hurt. We're not doing too good around here. I do have one thing though that makes me feel better. You see Hansford and Lipscomb County? They're a lot lighter red than we are. And I really think that that's because when people are having heart attacks from these counties, they come to us to get taken care of. Just saying. And I really probably believe that, so. Heart disease, risk factors, high blood pressure, smoking doesn't cause any problem, high cholesterol, obesity, diabetes, and genes. And I'm not talking about Levi's. These are the main risk factors for heart disease. Okay, your heart, if it could do so, would run from a cigarette. Anybody know this guy? Sure you do. Okay, this guy is a heart attack waiting to happen. Okay, he weighs a little too much. He's pretty happy about it. Not only that, he's a Patriots fan, so I'll tell you something. Here's his heart. And somebody's going to reach in there and pull that pin pretty quick, and this guy's going to explode. You don't want to be that guy. Well, there's Darwin rearing his ugly head. This is an unintentional injury, and I want you to know that that blood right there in people blood, that's a deer that jumped out in front of this guy's car. Okay, so like I told you, unintentional injury is just going to jump up in this presentation because that's how it happens to you in real life. You're tooling along down the highway and boom, you fail to proceed. So, how do we reduce our heart disease risk? Well, we exercise. That's really good. Somebody asked me several months ago if I was a runner. I looked down at my belly and I said, are you kidding? I only run if something is chasing me and I'm out of ammunition. So, I'm here to tell you to do as I say and not as I do today, because that's what I do. You need to control your blood pressure. That means having it checked, okay? Your blood pressure is not normal simply because you haven't checked it. Although, that's the way a lot of guys think. Now, if you want to stick your arm in the free thing at Walmart and call that good, see a needle. Get your blood pressure checked, preferably by a nurse, with a cuff and a stethoscope, so that we really actually know what your blood pressure is. Okay, it's not that big a deal. Control your weight, which means exercise and don't overeat. That's pretty simple. That's where obesity comes from, okay? Eating more calories than you burn. It's pretty simple arithmetic. There's nothing magic about it. There's no magic pill for it. It's not anything other than eating more calories than you burn. Number 4, control your cholesterol. Guess what? Here we are again. That means actually having it checked. Okay? So you got to come in and get your cholesterol actually checked. I'm going to draw your blood and see what your cholesterol is doing. And number 5, don't smoke. Okay, so here's the take-home point for heart disease. You can't outrun your genes. If you have a family history of early heart disease, you had better pay attention to these 5 things because they are risk factors you can control. Because you can't control your genes. So, did I mention exercise was good for you? Okay, now, who here thinks it's a good idea to poke a crocodile with a stick while 17 of his buddies are standing around watching you do it? Now, come on, somebody in here has got to see that picture and say, that actually looks like fun. Okay? That is Darwin lurking, and that will be an unintentional injury, although you might argue that. So let's talk about cancer a little bit. Cancer's ugly. What are the most common cancers in men? Number one, prostate cancer. Okay? I had a pathology professor in medical school make a statement during a lecture one time that he could find on autopsy some degree of carcinoma of the prostate in any man over 75 years of age. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but just tells you prostate cancer is common and has been common for, I don't know, a long time, because it's been a long time since I've been medical. Lung cancer. Number three is colon cancer. And we have bladder cancer and melanoma. These are risk factors for prostate cancer. You have got to be kidding me. These have all been identified as risk factors for getting prostate cancer. Does that tell you why that's the number one cancer that men get? Who can keep up with all that? Well, nobody. And then we have lung cancer. And again, I don't want to show you some really ugly pictures of some guy's lungs. So this is an ashtray that some guy made that put a lung cancer in it, which is kind of pretty cool in a sort of a morbid sense. Here's the Darwin Award winner from 2008. It's a co-award. These guys have hooked an electric grill on a table in the middle of a pool, and they've got the power strip sitting on a pair of flip-flops. There is beer involved. Let's see that. So, I bet the guy that took that picture is glad he wasn't in that pool. So what kills guys from cancer? Well, it ain't prostate cancer. 88,000 plus guys a year die from lung cancer. Lung cancer will kill you. Prostate cancer? Well, not so much. 98% 10-year survival rate. That's like one of the very best survival rates for any cancer around. And mostly it's because prostate cancer is pretty indolent, slow growing, kind of not really mean stuff. There are some really aggressive prostate tumor stuff. And you shouldn't really ignore that. Colon cancer, bladder cancer, melanoma, everybody kind of falls down in order other than lung and prostate. So it's time to put your Christmas decorations up. Here's a Darwin Award winner. This guy's in trouble. You know what the really sad thing about this picture is? There's some guy standing out here who could have helped him, but instead he chose to take a picture of this guy. Now that wasn't very nice. So how do we prevent cancer? Well, you saw the risk factors for prostate cancer. Anybody want to try that for a week? How about a month? Nah, can't be done. So what you do is you go get you a PSA test. And starting after age 50, I would suggest that you guys, fairly regularly, like every year or two, get a PSA test. Now, U.S. Preventive Task Force says no. Okay? They don't want us guys over 50 getting our PSAs checked. Why is that? Well, the U.S. Preventive Task Force is a public health entity. Public health does some good things. There's the bubonic plague outbreak, and they'll try to kind of contain it. If Ebola happens to hit New Jersey, then they'll try to make sure they get stopped before it gets to New Hampshire. And stuff like that. But public health also does something with dollars. Okay? They don't think you need to get your PSA checked because if every male over 50 gets a PSA every year, it costs $130,000 to screen everybody in the U.S. and find one case of prostate cancer. And it only costs $92,000 to wait until you have symptoms and treat your cancer until you die. Okay? So this is a public policy recommendation that has to do with dollars. It has absolutely nothing to do with your personal health. And that's why I would suggest that you get your PSA checked. Now, here's a little problem. Sex matters. Okay? Men who have more sex have a lower rate of prostate cancer. Men under 55 who have relations more than 3 times a week reduce the risk of prostate cancer by 20%, which is huge. Men 55 to 64 twice a week, and over 64 once a week. So you can reduce your risk of prostate cancer by 20%. You can talk your wife into it. So, lung cancer. How do you not get lung cancer? Well, that's pretty easy. You don't smoke. Okay, that is the single risk factor for lung cancer. If we didn't have smoking, lung cancer would be rare. It would be uniformly fatal because we wouldn't know how to treat it, and we wouldn't have a bunch of drugs to treat it because it'd be so rare. Which is why people die in this country of stomach cancer and pancreatic cancer. In Japan, the most common cancer is pancreatic and stomach. And Japanese people get an EGD, a little tube down their throat, regularly screening for that, and they have a pretty good cure rate. Here, we don't screen for that cancer, and if you get pancreatic cancer, you're going to die because we don't figure out you have it until it's way, way too late. So, don't smoke, you don't get lung cancer. Oops, my top word. Should have had history right there. So, get screening if you have a family history of lung cancer. Okay, if you have a first-degree relative, dad, mom, that kind of thing, that had lung cancer, you should probably have a chest X-ray or not. If you have COPD or emphysema, then your doctor should be doing a chest X-ray on you every now and then. Colon cancer. How do you avoid colon cancer? Well, there's all kinds of dietary stuff about colon cancer. Nothing's been proven. But through the years, I've heard you shouldn't eat grilled foods, you shouldn't eat fried foods, you shouldn't eat fatty foods, you should eat broccoli, you should eat kale. So, you know, if you want to eat 1.5 pounds of broccoli a week for the next 20 years, go for it. I'd suggest you get a colonoscopy, beginning at about age 50. There's a polyp in there, they'll clip it out and have it come back in 3 to 5 years. If there's not a polyp in there, you get a pat on the head and they tell you to come back in 10 years. Okay? That's not a lot of fuss and bother for your life, really. 2, don't smoke. What does that have to do with your colon? Well, guess what? Cigarette smoking doubles your colon cancer risk. It also is the only single known risk factor for bladder carcinoma. So if you don't want bladder cancer, don't smoke, because that doubles your risk. Is there a pattern with this whole smoking thing? Okay, it like kills your heart, kills your colon, kills your bladder, kills your lungs. Doesn't cause prostate cancer that we know of, so that's a good thing. Melanoma, sunburn is not your friend. You all know that. You don't know that by now. Darwin's looking for you anyway. Oh, yes. That's a wood chipper, a big one. And it's jammed, but it's not jammed like it's gonna be. It's all that kind of way. So let's talk a little more about unintentional injury. Accidental death in the United States. This big blue thing is motor vehicle accidents. Okay, that's like more than 25% of all deaths. Number 2 is poisoning. Do you know that many people have been poisoned? We all know people who have been in wrecks or who have died from wrecks. How many people do you know have died from poisoning? Nobody? Well, that's one of those blessed things, because you have to know these government statistics. Included in this poisoning thing is accidental drug overdoses. Okay, I'm talking about like heroin, stuff like that. So these people are croaking in the inner cities, and that's why that's so big. Number 3 is falls. Oh, we all know people who fall. We know people who fall from places they shouldn't have been on in the first place. Okay, so that's 3/4, right? You take out the dope heads here, and it's motor vehicle and falls, and then everything else up here. Okay, and this was a kind of a firearm slide. It's only 0.5%. So when people are talking about gun control and all the deaths that occur, I don't think so. Not accidental deaths. 606. So anybody still think this is a good idea? Didn't think so. That's an unintentional injury. Okay, now, how many of you have experience with chainsaws? Sometimes they're hard to start. And really, if you'll just put that chainsaw blade between your legs, you can really get hold of that rope better. So, this guy forgot to think. Either that, or he has prostate cancer, and he has been on YouTube to learn how to take the prostate out. That's what's about to happen. Oh, he does. He's gonna get it in his eyes. So, thanks for coming. I have left plenty of time for questions, and would love to talk about any issue in men's health that you want to talk about. But men are pretty easy. We're not all that complex. We don't have all those hormones floating around and all those nether bits that had to be examined and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty easy for us. We either do something stupid, our heart quits because we didn't take care of it, or we get cancer in the throat because we smoke.
Okay, have you seen a decrease in lung cancer due to the fact that they don't allow walk-in bars and restaurants for people to smoke?
Well, the overall smoking rate has decreased because of that, and so yes, commensurate with that, lung cancer rates have dropped. Yep, it works. Secondhand smoke is also an issue, probably. So people who do secondhand smoke, especially smoke, it's a risk.
We were talking this morning about when you're on medications, supposed to be on them long term, and then you just suddenly quit taking them. Explain some of the risks from that.
Which kinds of medicines?
This particular question was an inhaler for chronic COPD.
So somebody has COPD and or asthma, because they run together. If you're taking your bronchodilator, you have an asthma attack. That will kill you. That one's fairly easy to fix, though. And you talk about some other things like blood pressure medicine. There are several classes of blood pressure medicine that, if you simply stop taking, will cause your blood pressure to skyrocket. And chief among those are beta blockers. But there are some other medicines that will do that too. Alphas like clonidine will do that. And you really don't just simply stop taking your antihypertensive. Statins. Okay. You may have heard on the news there are new recommendations coming about statins. Statins are cholesterol drugs. Okay. For 20 years, we haven't put anybody with an elevated cholesterol statin drug. Well, it turns out that might not be the best idea. We should be stratifying risk and finding people who are really high risk, and those people need statins, and the other people don't. Okay? How long do you take a statin? Okay, once your cholesterol's high, is it high forever and you have to take statins forever? I can't answer that question. Neither can anybody else. Okay, and the reason is there have been no long-term studies done on people over age 65 to find out if continuing statins past that age actually confer a benefit. Do we tell you to quit taking your statin? No. Makes cardiologists very angry because they're convinced that it helps, but they don't have any evidence. Okay, so pretty much you start a statin and then you're encouraged to stay on it, but we don't have any evidence to support that. It just makes sense. Some things in medicine that just make sense really make sense, and some things that sound really good in medicine, no. It doesn't work that way. So we need some evidence. So we need some of you guys over 65 to sign up for a study. Okay?
Just stop like your medicine. See how you do.
Well, only half of them stop. The other half,
Yeah.
we see who dies first. Okay, that's how you do that study.
What about things like diabetes? Like what is the typical way that someone that has diabetes that didn't know they were diabetic finds out about that kind of thing?
Well, the most common way I see it happen is a guy comes in for a DOT physical to drive a truck, and they got sugar in their urine.
So is
Hey,
that
dude, you're diabetic. What? I am not. Well, yeah, you are. Once a month, twice a month. Do you see that? Very common. Okay? It's another one of those screening tests. It's a funny thing. I tried to focus on things that kill us today, and diabetes ain't that thing. Isn't that crazy? Is this not on the list in the top 10 things that kill men in America? And the rate of it is skyrocketing, but really what kills you is other things. Okay, it spawns heart disease. Okay, it also is a risk factor for some of these cancers, especially colon and bladder cancer. But it's not a big risk factor. It's a risk factor for prostate cancer. Okay, it was on that list of all those 58 things that can cause your prostate to turn against you. So diabetes it's a big deal, and it's getting to be a bigger and bigger deal. And the only way to know you have it basically is to get screened for it. So when you come in and get your cholesterol checked, guess what? We're going to sneak a sugar in there too. And that's just something that we do. So when you come in and get your blood pressure checked and get your cholesterol checked, we're going to check your sugar as well. But diabetes won't kill you outright. You will die younger, and you'll die blind with one leg on dialysis. That's not a real appealing way to go, but that's the whole thing in a nutshell on diabetes. You know, it spawns these other problems that kill you, but it doesn't really kill you all outright.
If high cholesterol can be a problem, what does low cholesterol do?
Nobody knows. We think it may not be good for you, but there are a whole pre-existing heart disease, taking high-dose statins, and their LDLs get down to like 20 or 30, and the cardiologists finally say, well, okay, let's back off on that a little bit. Because that's a really low LDL, but we don't know that it actually has any deleterious effects. The problem is that cholesterol is really hard to control without medication. Okay? prone to have that every morning. Now, carrying a little extra weight around, that's a problem. That helps your cholesterol be bad, okay? And it shouldn't be ignored. So controlling your weight will help control your cholesterol. But it's not the total cholesterol that we're really concerned about. There are two, we fractionate cholesterol, we fractionate lipids into triglycerides, which is a different blood fat than cholesterols, that is more associated with what you're eating. If you're eating a lot of fatty food, then your triglycerides are going to be high. Unless you have an inborn problem called type 4 hyperlipidemia, and these people have triglycerides in the thousands, okay, 2, 3, 4,000, and their blood is pink when we draw it. It's really creepy. But the main kind of cholesterol that we're concerned with is LDL, which is the bad fraction. You don't have heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, et cetera, we want to be below 130. If you do, we want to be below 100. And then there's HDL, which is high density lipoprotein, which is the good fraction of cholesterol. And we want it to be high. Problem is, I don't have a pill for that. Okay, your HDL is pretty much what it is. You can make it go up a little bit with exercise and weight loss, and actually red wine will bump it up a couple of points. But in general, there's not a whole lot that makes your HDL higher. You're pretty much stuck with whatever it is you got. So we focus on making your LDL as low as we can get. So if you have any comorbidities, diabetes, hypertension, pre-existing heart disease, we want your LDL to be below 100. And that's pretty much going to cost a statin. You really can't do it otherwise.
So what would the little machine that tests your drop blood, that tests the LDL or HDL?
Yes, test them all.
That's all.
It's actually a calculation. Okay, we can measure directly your total cholesterol. We measure directly your triglycerides, and we measure directly your HDL. We cannot directly measure your LDL outside a research lab. So we have this little formula. You take your total cholesterol, subtract 20% of your triglycerides and all of your HDL, and what's left is your LDL. And that's pretty accurate. And that's how everybody does it.
Well, that's the reason I was asking, what does low do? So that's left in my testing. I hadn't heard an explanation for it.
Did the results just show low?
Just showed low, didn't show give a number, just showed low.
Didn't even give a
Twice.
number.
Twice.
Cool.
That's what the lab person
Your
said.
LDL is controlled.
That's why I wanted to have something to worry about.
Not that we know of. That it? Okay, we can all go and be done.
Thank you.
Perfect.